It's cold. It's a little better. Went and warmed up my coffee, kiddos. Good morning. It's what's today? Today's the 15th. Yep. So today's September 15th, and I've been spending a lot of time, not a lot of time, but I've been spending some time catching up on my book because I would write a page, then do a video, write a page, do a video, write a page, do a video. So I decided to get ahead and write a bunch of pages and then come back and do the videos. So I haven't posted in probably a week. I was posting other videos about other random stuff, and I'm falling behind on the book. Not that I have a deadline. I want to finish it. It's one of those things in the back of my mind that I know I have to finish. So it's what I've been working on this week and this weekend. So I got a few pages done, and I don't want to get too far ahead in the book so I wouldn't lose track on the videos. But anyways, the next question is, when I was growing up, if I had my own bedroom or if I shared it with somebody and if I can describe it. So here we go. Right now that I was going through the book, I couldn't remember if I talked about my room already before. So I'll just try to make this brief, just in case I did talk about it in another video. So I actually shared my room with my brother till he was married, till he got married and moved out. So I was probably about 9 or 10 years old when I finally got my room to myself. So when I finally got my own room to myself, as far as I can remember, it was just a normal bedroom. I had my bed in there. I had a small twin size bed in there. I had my dresser, nightstand, a little desk. My sheets, I think I had like Hot Wheel sheets at the time when I was little. My carpet, I remember my carpet. We had brown carpet. It was brown and beige carpet, and it had stripes. And so I'd get my Hot Wheels and I would play on the carpet, and use the stripes as my road or what have you. And it was fun. My bedroom was cool. It was my own room. But of course my room changed. Actually, it changed as I changed. As I grew older, as I got older, my room changed. Shoot. Sorry guys, kicked on a light. My room changed. So at one point I got into it was actually when I first, okay, let me backtrack. I had toys everywhere in the room when I was a kid. I used to play my cars on the carpet, and so I had my toys. I'm not gonna go through my toys. I already made a video on that. All the toys I had, but I had my toys in there. And then once I got a little older, teenage years, I started getting rid of my toys, and I was getting into cars. So I started collecting car magazines. I collect trucking magazine, mini trucking magazine, lowrider magazine, hot rod magazine. I had a couple from NHRA. I was into cars and trucks. So when I would buy these magazines, they always had like the centerfold. It was a mini poster centerfold of whatever car of the month. So whether it was a lowrider, whether it was a truck, mini truck, or a lifted truck, whatever was in the magazine, I would take out, and I actually put those all over my wall. So my whole bedroom wall was covered with posters of cars. Like I said, mini trucks, lifted trucks, lowriders. So I went through that phase, and then funny story, actually, what happened to that phase is so I was just out and about, and my sister went to the house, and my sister at the time, she had a spider monkey. That was her pet. She had a pet monkey, and she went to my house, and I guess my mom told her just put him in Anthony's room. So my sister puts him in my room. Well, then when I get home, she tells me, hey, his name was Boom Boom. She says, Boom Boom's in your room. I was like, what? She's like, Boom Boom's in your room. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna go play with this monkey. So I go in the room, and every single one of my posters was ripped off the wall. So I just remember yelling. I was like, what the f-? And my sister comes running in, and she's like, what happened? I said, look, it was a mess. He shredded all my posters. He made a mess in that room. So that was it. I had no more posters. I had no more car posters. I all the posters I had collected throughout, maybe a year or two. Actually, it'd been a few years because I had quite a bit of posters, and you get one a month per magazine. So, anyways, there went all my posters. So I was like bummed out. I was just bummed out. I started building model cars. So there was these little model cars that you put together and you paint them, and they're like real cars, but they're little. They're model cars. So I had those painted and all hooked up on my shelf and on my dresser, and those are all destroyed. Some of the parts were broken, so that monkey did a number in my room. So that was the end of that phase. That phase stopped. So after that, I actually got into graffiti. I started doing graffiti. So I would do little murals on my wall, in the room. And one wall would be one mural, the other wall would be another mural. And then I'd leave it like that for about a month or so. And then I'd get bored and I'd paint over it. And then I'd do another mural. And I think at the end of my graffiti phase, my room, I actually painted like a 3D checkerboard, and it was black and fluorescent yellow. Yeah, it was black and fluorescent yellow. I can't remember if it was yellow or green, but it was fluorescent yellow. So it was a checkerboard, but it was 3D. So what I did is I started with a very tiny, tiny square in the middle of the wall. And as I went, the squares around it got bigger and bigger and bigger until it hit the edge of the walls, and it was a 3D checkerboard. So the way I painted it, was fluorescent yellow and black, and then I had a black light. Well, then I painted smiley faces coming out of the center. So the smiley faces were like this, coming out in a circle pattern, but towards you. And as it came towards you, the faces got bigger. So it looked 3D. And then with the black light hitting it, I did some shadows with with some white paint. So it looked really cool. That was the last mural I had on there, was the checkerboard, 3D checkerboard with the smiley face. This was in the 90s, so it was when house music was popping, and techno music was real popular. So I was into that music at the time, so I wanted everything to be crazy and abstract and loud and whatever that meant at the time. But that's what I did. And then after that phase, I think that was it. That was it. I moved out. Then I was done. That's it. My room changed just like I did. And now that I'm in this room, and this room now that I'm in now is actually was my middle son's room. So it's still Ray's room. This was still Ray's room, but he's out, he's out on his own now. So we converted this room into my little space, and this room too has changed since I've taken over this room. It's changed. Was a gym at one time, was a music room at another time. Now I have my books in here. That kind of Nana Michelle was talking about making it a man cave. That's why I have a keg back here, and my tequila collection from Mexico when I go, and some shot glasses that I collect, what have you. So it was supposed to be a man cave, but I didn't get into drinking like that, so I didn't want it to be a man cave. And once I started getting into this, reading and journaling and doing these videos, I decided to turn it into what I call a gentleman study. Oops, sorry. I call it a gentleman's study now, which probably isn't far from it. And I had a lot of other ideas for this room, but I share it with Nana. She has her nail station here, her sewing station. I do have some workout equipment in here that I use as a little gym, but other than that, and of course the desk that I use and the computers that I use, other than that, this room hasn't changed much. But my rooms growing up, they changed quite a bit. But that's it. That's gonna do it for me. Let me make The one thing I will say about all my bedrooms from when I was growing up till now is I've always had to keep them organized, nice and clean and organized. And I don't mean spotless. I just mean organized, kind of how you kind of see my books now, organized and categorized the way I think they should be. That's how I like to keep my room. I keep all my stuff together, and I try to keep it nice and tidy and organized. But honestly, every time I get new things, I add more shelves, or I want, like this desk, I made it bigger so I can add more screens, more camera gear, and I need to cut that out. I need to cut that out. I'm getting older, so the older I get, the more I collect, and it's getting out of hand. So there's a lot of this stuff up here that I'm going to start to get rid of. And as a matter of fact, I think we're going to have a yard sale this weekend. So Nana and I are talking about having a yard sale. So I think it's a good start to start getting rid of some of this stuff and go from there. But I think that's going to do it on my bedroom. I'm pretty sure you'll hear about it again in this book because I think I already talked about it. If I did, I did. If I didn't, there it was. And you'll probably hear more about it later. So until the next one, guys, I'll see you later. I guess it's probably cold already. Yep. I'm not even going to warm that up anymore.